So I'm not gonna hold y'all. I love the Ford Focus ST, and I am somebody that absolutely adores hatches. I adore turbocharged engines and Apple CarPlay. I'm not lying about that. But for a lot of people, the Ford lineup has always been a legacy, if you will. And if you haven't seen my video about 2007, I think that really answers a lot of questions. Now, I did a poll probably about a few weeks ago, and one of them that you guys chose as last was the Ford EcoBoost. Now, I wanted to talk about the EcoBoost in a different capacity and just kind of recognize how it changed Ford. And it really shifted a lot of the things that we used to know about Ford and a few things that I learned that I did not know. And in this video, we'll be talking about that. What's up, guys? My name is Chris, and welcome to The Breakdown, where we talk about everything cars, news, and reviews. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not, as always, welcome back. So the Ford EcoBoost lineup has been in question. It's a bit controversial. I'm not gonna hold you. And the reason why it's controversial is because Fords have always been known for, questionable quality, but nonetheless affordable quality. And I just learned a few things about this EcoBoost engine and how really intricate it is that they shifted and why they shifted over to EcoBoost. And it's not the reason that you think. And most people were wondering why we went EcoBoost in the first place. And the EcoBoost engine is probably one of the most curious engines that Ford has ever come out with, next to the Coyote. And I think it's a good time we talk about the EcoBoost and how it changed Ford as a lineup, and just a recognition of a few cars that really made a difference in the way that we are car enthusiasts today. So with that being said, in today's video, we'll not only be talking about the EcoBoost engine, a few things that I've learned, but more importantly, how it changed the company. With that being said, stick around and stay tuned, because you are now watching The Breakdown. Okay, so I'm going to keep this as linear as possible, and it's going to be very off the cuff. The EcoBoost engine is very much worldwide, from the 1 liter to the 3.5. It is very much a different era of Ford. Now, as I said it before in my 2007 video, that year changed everything. And one of the things that came along with that was funding from the government to push over more fuel economical resources to help car companies make more efficient cars. Now, prior to, Ford couldn't make anything that was really decent up until 2005. And they had pretty okay V6s. They had great V8s. One thing Ford knows how to do is make a freaking V8. And I say that confidently. And the problem with those engines, especially the big heavy breathing ones, was that even though they were tried and true, they were not fuel efficient. And as 2007 changes over everything, Ford has to reconsider what they're doing. Now, they've already been doing a lot of these fuel economical things over in Europe, particularly with the Fiesta, the Festiva, and the Focus. And a lot of those cars over there are designed with economy in mind. But the Mazda L engine is one of the first engines that really shifts everything for the EcoBoost era. And EcoBoost, for a lot of people, have found it to be a bit controversial, particularly because of the forced induction. And there's also been some oil leaks and things. But I think we have seen some really good stuff come out of these engines. Now, one of the first cars to ever get an EcoBoost engine was the Lincoln MKS. And that actually goes back to the MKR concept back in 2007. And the engine was designed to give you the efficiency of a 4-cylinder, but the power of a V8. And we also saw it with the Ford Taurus show. And this was not the first, but it was one of many to come. And I remember seeing the Ford Taurus show and really being amazed at how such an engine could power such a big car. And the branding of EcoBoost is really what kind of got me to thinking like, hey, yeah, this might be a great idea. And so part of the reason why we got a lot of these engines is because we were moving into a different direction, and the MPGs behind the EcoBoost was really where a lot of Ford got a good return on it, especially because they had to take loans, some small loans out from the government to help create these engines. Now, back to Mazda. So part of the reason why this was such a big deal was because this was at a time where Mazda and Ford were really realigning themselves. But I did not know that Ford can use the Mazda L engine as a Duratec engine in perpetuity. I had no idea. And what that means is that they can run a Mazda L design engine even though it was co-developed by Ford, and they can run this engine as long as they want. And so this is partly how we got the 2.3 liter EcoBoost engines. And the 2.3 liter as well as the 2.5 has also been a big deal for Mazda and for Ford, and that's how the Fusion was so good, because the 2.5 is a Mazda engine. And the EcoBoost is where we start to see a different shift from being big, heavy breathing V8s to truly remarkably powered 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder engines. The F-150 in particular is really what got people on board with the EcoBoost engine, especially the 3.5 liter. And we even see it in some applications like the Ford Flex, and we also see it in the Lincoln MKZ, and we just see so many different iterations of EcoBoost. Now, this does not say that this EcoBoost engine did not have problems. Apparently in the 1.6 liter and 1.5 liter for the Ford Fusion, there was a huge problem, and basically it was a ticking time bomb, and you didn't know when it was going to go out. So much so that there was a class action lawsuit against it. But it gave a lot more credence to where Ford was headed and really allowed them to do so many different other things. One of the greatest EcoBoost engines to ever come out of the Ford lineup was the Ford GT, and it was remarkable in its power and its styling. And I don't know if the Ford GT, unlike the one from 2005, would have ever been a thing. In addition to that, we got some really good stuff like the Ford Focus ST as well as the Ford Focus RS. And the Ford Focus RS, even though it had the Achilles heel about its engine blowing up, that's not the point here. These were some really good, punchy, powerful cars. And we start to see the EcoBoost like its hype around this time. Now, I do think that as they left sedans and started focusing more on hybridization and electrification is where EcoBoost somewhat dies, because the whole point of it is that it's turbocharged, whereas these new models are either electrified or purely electric. And so the EcoBoost era is really when we begin to see a lot of trucks do incredibly well. And considering if you take care of it as well as you can get an incredibly amount of reliability out of these engines. Now, transmission wise, I don't know, but I know that for F-150, one of, if not America's best selling truck ever, I think this is where Ford really shifted a lot of their ideas about what they design efficiency and performance to look like. Now, I will say this also is that this is also a different time where cars and trucks were really exciting, and it just seemed as though that car culture has absolutely changed, and EcoBoost is not as big of a household staple as it once was. Now everything's about Tesla, and everything is about, there is no more excitement about engines. And I also can't forget about the 2.3 liter hypo Mustang, which if you're not getting a GT or Cobra, people really not trying to hear it. But even still, for the average person who just wanted a really fun, sporty car, if you didn't want the hatchbacks, you could also get the EcoBoost Mustang. And quiet as it is kept, that car is pumping out roughly about 300 horsepower and easily much more efficient than that of a V6. I think it's safe to say that the EcoBoost nameplate was really a great marketing strategy when it debuted. And honestly, I think that it also helped to push a little more of car culture because it gave us as enthusiasts something to be excited about. I'm not gonna hold you. Nowadays, you'd be hard pressed to find a really good sporty car, and I think the EcoBoost lineup really made the brand exciting. And I just wanted to really acknowledge some really different things about the EcoBoost engine, as well as just how it shifted forward from being kind of boring for a while to being a little more exciting. And this is a really good time to really kind of reconcile with the idea that those days are probably over, but they may not be. And we may see more V8s and V6s come back because that's where the industry is likely headed. And we may see some hybrids, but I wanted to acknowledge that the EcoBoost era was definitely something that you had to just be there. I ain't gonna hold you. But with that being said, you guys let me know what you think about EcoBoost. If you've ever actually owned one, what your experience was like. and if, just if, they should really focus on marketing that back to the masses. And with that being said, until the next video, I will see you guys later.